Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to Basic Binges, part of Nom Talk Network. On this show, we review popular shows that are out now while eating and drinking our favorite binge-worthy snacks and drinks. So, as you all know, I am your host, Jordyn Orozco, and it is wonderful to join you on this wonderful and amazing Sandman Day to discuss the season finale and a little extra episode of The Sandman. I'm really excited to talk about the latter of these two, but to also cap all of this with the people I originally started with. So it's actually great. And I'm so happy you both could make it. I'm just drinking some wonderful water. I skipped out on the cocktails tonight. Just have a big, huge Yeti full of water and half of a bologna and cheese sandwich because I love those. That's what I do. But Jefferson and Bill, it is so good to see you. Thank you for joining me on the last of this wonderful and amazing series. Let's go ahead and start with Bill. What are you munching on? What are you chomping on? Anything?
Well, as is tradition, Coke Zero, ask for it by name. Now there it is, right there. That and it had Wingstop earlier. So eating healthy tonight, let me tell you.
Nice.
Oh, I love Wingstop. I love me some Wingstop. So good. And Jefferson, what's going on? Haven't seen you in a while.
I know, yeah. It's been I missed out on the bulk of the Doll's House, but I'm back for the finale of the Doll's House. Right now I was just texting our person, Stephanie, that I just got back from the gym. So I'm downing a protein shake, but I'll have something unhealthy afterwards, I swear.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You need to. Well, thank you all for joining me again. And so for those of you that are watching, that are joining us, we are talking about episodes 10 and 11 of The Sandman. 10 is the season finale of this wonderful show. And then it was actually Bill. Yes, just the season finale, not the series. Because if it's the series finale, I'm going to have to choke some people out at Netflix. But then episode 11, which Bill actually turned me on to, that I didn't know. And I kind of saw it before we did a stream and then got really excited and watched it after. And I was I loved it. But let's go ahead and just sort of recap this entire series before we get into this season finale. So this entire series followed the ever mysterious and ever emo Morpheus, who is the Lord of Dreams, through a series of trials and tribulations, basically, to regain his items of power. And the reason why actually today is not international, but Sandman Day is September 14th was the day that Neil Gaiman officially named the day that Morpheus escaped his captivity. And it was the day that he got released. So happy Sandman Day. But basically it follows the story of Morpheus through the first half of the series where he gets his items of power and he faces off with an individual who tries to use his gem to sort of change the world and rid the world of lying. When in fact he's rid the world of dreams. And we see how catastrophic that is in 24/7 and how Morpheus fixes it. The latter part of the entire series deals with finding out the Vortex, Rose, who's this individual who is born every so often, thousands of years, who is a human that has the ability to not only transcend the dream world, but change it and could alter it for forever. And so we see Morpheus's siblings, specifically Desire and Despair, sort of plot against him to sort of morph the vortex to their own will. And we don't necessarily see all of that. It's more of the influence of the Corinthian and the influence of this nightmare that wants to sort of use that power to destroy the dream world. And fast forward to episode 10, which basically everything comes to a head. We see Morpheus catch up to the Corinthian. We see Rose sort of almost scarily embrace the power of the vortex. And we see sort of just endings and sort of a continuation of what might happen when there is going to be a second season of The Sandman. So let's just start into it. Let's start with the beginning. Basically, Morpheus catches up with the Corinthian, right? We see him basically confront the Corinthian, and the Corinthian knows that he's going to get destroyed, ultimately. That's the end of it. And we can see sort of I would say the first time you can see fear in the Corinthian, because he knows that there's nothing that he can do in that. And so I just sort of briefly want to discuss the Corinthian, his character, and how it sort of relates to Morpheus in this entire series. So Jefferson, what did you think about that? I know we kind of saw Corinthian's demise coming, but what did we feel like the journey was? Did we feel like it was an accurate representation? Do we feel like it was deserved? Do we feel like the Corinthian needed to go longer than he did? What are your thoughts?
I kind of wish that, okay, like, just for all intents and purposes, the comic and this part of the story are basically correct, basically the same. Like, they leave some things out, but yeah, basically the same. The way that he kind of spares Galt, like repairs Galt, but like doesn't with the Corinthian, like, what is it at the end? Like he does what with Corinthian? Like he doesn't quite, he does end Corinthian, but like there's no coming back, right?
Yeah.
There was no option
basically he can recreate Corinthian, but
he can. Yeah.
it's going to be a different, right? It's going to be a different
Yes.
Corinthian. And I think it's good to point that with Galt, and I think this is something that's like parallel to it too. The Corinthian didn't do anything to show change in his character. Galt did, right? And we see that in the episode where we sort of see her trying to sort of save the Rose's brother from that abusive home that he's in. And she's basically like, I just want to be good. Like, I don't want to be this thing that you created me. And we sort of see Morpheus say, well, too bad. Right. And then in this episode, we see actually him having some sort of a decent heart and making her into something that is a dream, right? Something that people can dream of. So I'm sorry, continue.
No, it's just I think that I do think that Morpheus did the right thing. I think that with the way the Corinthian with the way that he like turned out, I think I don't think there was any we needed to reboot the PC. We needed to just factory reset the whole thing. There was no way we can change this. We can't system restore back to a different date. No, the Corinthian needed to just end right there. Honestly, like it was a little how do I put this? It was a little more ethereal in the comic, the way that it all went down. But no, like in general, like this was a great adaptation of that part of the Doll's House. Yeah.
Yeah, and so Bill, let's go to you. How did you think the Corinthian story played out? Did you feel like it was he deserved to be, demised? Did you feel like he was a strong character? What are your thoughts?
Oh no, he was a strong character, but that was the point of the arc, right? From first episode to here, the main overarching story this season was really Corinthian, with the wrapper of desire and and all of their machinations kind of going on, kind of setting us up for hopefully what comes next and things like that. But so that needed to be squared away, and we've established that that Dream is not spectacular. Again, this is coming from someone that my experience now with the series is exclusively the episodes. That's it. That Dream is not one to be merciful particularly. Or at least be like, shucks, it's okay, you've reformed. So it was going to be ended. So that needed to go. And even at the end of episode 10, I mean, he's still making nightmares, some pretty brilliant ones too. That wasn't, there's still a use and a need for nightmares. The problem was one got away from itself and did not fully grok its intent and purpose in the scheme of things, and that's what caused us that, and him being locked up for 100+ years out of action to kind of, so we couldn't wrangle Corinthian, is what made the problem. So I think it's more that he's come to understand the real kind of like character transition that happens through this season is more, he understands, that Dream needs to be a little bit more magnanimous, needs to be a little bit more benevolent, needs to be more, understand, have a little bit more empathy towards things. But that's not, there's a limit to the change, right? Because it's still, these creatures are what they are.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to point out that, like, in this entire series, when it comes to, like you said, sort of like the machinations of Desire and Despair, who's sort of like, I don't want to say bullied into like trying
Right.
to like take Dream down a notch. There's one missing. I don't know if you caught that. It was in an episode, and they sort of talk about, oh, so and so is still missing, and then it's like a couple of lines, and then so we have all of these mysterious sort of things going on that never got explained throughout the entire series,
What
right?
was it? Wait,
And
I didn't catch that.
I think so. The twins are there's two twins, and
Yes.
it's Desire and Despair, which is why they're working together. Then you have Destruction. Death is, we know, is alive.
Delirium.
Yeah,
Was
I
it
think it's
Delirium?
Delirium that's missing. Yes, it's Delirium. And then this guy, Destiny. Thank you. But they said that there's one missing, and I don't know if we've ever caught it. And even in the background, when you can see, let's say, for example, in Desire's like room where he can communicate or he
Yes.
can call upon his brothers and sisters, all of their symbols are there except
Yeah.
for one. And
Really?
so
Destruction. It's destruction.
It's destruction.
yeah, so Destruction is missing. And we don't know, right? Like there's nothing there. And so sorry, so go back to episode 10. Yeah, I do feel like the Corinthian needed to be destroyed. There was no going back. There was no sort of change. There was no metamorphosis in this. And I think it's important that like a lot of these characters sort of showed that, right? In the waking and in the dream world, and in sort of like these fantasy worlds that happen. Let's talk about Rose. I've said in the past couple of episodes, and Bill, you've been here pretty much you've been here the entire time. But Jefferson, we were talking about Rose, and I kind of felt like her story was not strong at all. I felt like there could have been more added to it. I don't think it was necessarily the actress. I think it was just
The
the
concept
way
of a
that
vortex.
no, I think it was just the writing,
Ah.
and the way that they sort of made Rose. It just wasn't
Okay.
strong. And I feel like there could have been more. She could have been more of a powerhouse, and there could have been
Did-
more of a
I
dynamic, you know.
I see what you mean, because she did feel very MacGuffin-y, if you know what I mean. She
Yeah.
felt very like she's just a plot device.
Oh,
That makes
it's
sense.
Yeah,
it's
and-
a true statement. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
and that's
sorry.
what we.
Mhm.
No, I was just gonna say, and that's what somebody had addressed in the previous episodes, where it was
Mhm.
just like, it just kind of seemed like she was thrown in there to advance the story. It was almost like, okay, we have to do this part. That's what it felt like to me.
I see.
It didn't feel like, while it was a part of the comic and it was a part of the graphic novel, like that could have been its own series, right? And they should have focused it right on that, except they split sort of the series into that. I will say I did look up the ending and how Rose's story sort of ends. And I feel like they stuck pretty much to the ending of that series, except for the fact that in the comics, and Jefferson, I know you can probably fact check this, but in the comics, I do believe that it was I think it was Despair that was about to destroy Morpheus, and then the aunt steps in, and then that's when she says, no, I will be the sacrifice, and
Yes.
basically saves the dream world.
Right.
But she does take Rose's power because of that, or something like that. So the way that it happened was a little bit more, I would say, like Disney-fied, like, here, I'll take it.
Honestly,
Okay, well, I'm good. Yeah, go ahead.
A lot of decisions with the Sandman TV show were Disney-fied. In a way, like, I guess to make it more palatable for an audience, that to be more, I guess like accepted by a more like modern audience, wider audience. With D, that's his name, right? Dr. Destiny. Dr. Destiny in the comic, but D, a lot more ruthless. Like, I think I mentioned earlier, like way earlier, that a lot of D's character was neutered. Like, yes, the diner episode, full blown, like faithful adaptation. But there were a lot of choices where I was just like, I can't see D doing this in the show that he did in the comic. And he didn't. He didn't kill the driver. He didn't so and so and so and so. And so with this, like you said, with this ending for episode 10, it does feel a lot more happy. That's the best way I can put it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll
And yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
No, go, Bill, please.
I don't know for myself. I don't think I would characterize it as Disneyfication or more palatable or anything like that, because
Hmm.
I mean, evidence as to the cat massacre in the next episode. I mean, that shit's way dialed to 12. So them
Right.
being
Yeah, it's
delicate
true.
about pussyfooting around stuff is not really their what they're after. But what you do look at is this is the shortcoming of a lot of novel adaptations. Outlander suffers from it prolifically, especially after season 1, and that is they start doing shorthand with characters to try and fit things in that in the stories in the comics, they get whole comic issues to themselves. They get other side things to themselves. You get spin-offs. You got things where these characters can breathe and you build an emotional attachment and understanding to what they are doing. But here it's Netflix. It's not even an old network where you get 22 episodes. This is 10. So
Fair.
here's your time. So what exactly of this series would you cut out so that you could put in more stuff about Rose? And that I would put to you guys. What are you going to cut out? You need to cut out at least 2 hours. Then you can give
That's the
more
thing though.
flesh.
Like they
Then you
gave
can give
Rose
more
4 episodes.
Say what?
They gave Rose 4 episodes though.
Mhm.
Which
Well, they
is
did, but that doesn't mean that they gave her much. Everything that whenever she's there, there's not really a time where she's just sitting as a wallflower.
yeah.
But neither are they really
Mhm.
giving her. They don't have a character episode with her. We know
Yeah.
we care much more about death after that one episode.
Yeah.
Because it's a moment where there's not a lot that happened in that episode.
Sure.
It's just moments spent with these people. There's never time that's just spent with Rose to understand what's going on, where we find it. Rose is going from point to point to point. But what that means is for the viewer, it's much more shallow. We don't really give a shit about Rose. We don't know what's moving them, what makes them tick. It's the difference between you take what's as far Guardians of the Galaxy boy, and in one movie you can have us sobbing over a tree, and then you have other movies where you can have multiple installments of a franchise, and you still really could not give a shit whether these people live or die. It's
Right.
those differences of whether you get to spend some time with it, and it's just like relationships, it's quality time, right? We never get any real quality character time with Rose. We know more about what's as far with the one episode where it's jumping every 100 years.
Oh, Hobgadling.
Talking with that character,
Yeah, we do.
we know more about
That's
him,
true.
what he looks at in characterizations and stuff like that. A bit is absolutely writing, but here when you have a narrative, they could have probably clipped it maybe after episode 5 or 6, expand that to 10 episodes, and now you have a fully fleshed out season 1, and now you wait to season 2. But then you've got Netflix execs that are going to be kind of like, is that enough to hook them for round 2? If we've got to get them to what's going on with the next battle. And so it's absolutely true what you guys said about this whole thing about Rose. The way it feels is we're not there to care about her. That character is there to motivate the rest of the story, and the rest of the story kind of rotates around them. You need that hook to be at the end so that, are they going to kill her? And that's so that Dream can die, because when Dream can live, if Dream's going to live, someone has to die. So we've established that with Gargoyle back at the beginning.
Right.
Rose, think about it this way: we never care about Rose as much as we did that damn Gargoyle after 30 seconds.
That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, who wasn't sobbing when Dream said,
Oh.
I'm not asking your permission, I'm asking, asking the critters. That was much more powerful than anything ever came out of Rose's mouth or said to Rose.
Absolutely. Which is why I think it gets to that point where she was used as a plot
exactly. I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
I guess the only difference is I don't think it's because they were trying to soften anything. I think it's just slightly a combination of lazy with / they didn't have time to get where all those things needed to be without putting more into her. But then you got to cut out and have some leaps of how did you get from here to here? And you can tell those passion episodes, like the diner. You don't need to have that episode in this series at all for the rest of the story to work, but it's a damn good episode.
True.
And so I could see
so
writers
good.
in the writer's room sitting there flipping tables going, you cut that episode, we're walking. So
Yeah.
you make those
I-
trade-offs. So
There was a tweet where Gaiman was saying how he was not only excited to like get started on the Diner episode, but someone asked him like, what was it like writing Diner episode? And it was like he just said something like, if you think reading the Diner issue was bad enough, picture how it's going to be as a TV episode. And he was just hyping it up like this is the episode that's gonna like make or break the show. Basically, what he was trying to hype up. And honestly, like, yeah, like as a whole, 5 and 6, yeah, 5 and 6 is the
also 11, because again, these
Sure,
are
yeah.
amazing standalone stories that
Yep.
are fucking amazing. But they also eat time,
Mhm.
you know, out of those 10 episodes. So again, this goes back to the, I don't know that they were just kind of like, oh, they'll be too delicate, because I don't think Gaiman cares about delicate. But you know, there are, even when you read his regular writing, you can tell where Gaiman's really gets into something and stuff where it's like, yeah, we got to keep on moving along. And let's get to it. I think I felt some of that here, and
For
hopefully,
Dollhouse.
yeah. Well, specifically, I was thinking like the novel for American Gods.
Oh,
You know, some part of it's really that's the majority. I've read a couple of his things. American Gods is one I've read twice and just kind of really dug into it. But it's like more like I love his world building and his specific moments, but sometimes his writing isn't really that strong for me. Kind of thing. It's like he has some piece better. It's usually, I don't know if he's inspired and it really hits hard and it really hits good. But again, now I'm just hopeful that Netflix does not do anything wildly stupid and not pick it up. I mean, with regards to it before like 3 or 4 months ago, the notion that they wouldn't pre-book them for 4 more seasons right as they stand would be unimaginable. Now I expect 80% plus odds that it will get renewed, but you know, I'm not going to put any big money on it.
oh, after the WB thing, yeah.
Well, no, even Netflix. Netflix has
Sure.
been gouging the shit out of its shows, and Netflix always, their habit was to pre-book when you came in to pitch a series at Netflix. Any showrunners coming in to pitch has to pitch 3 seasons. They want to know that if it does take off, that you've got a plan for what you're going to do next. Because earlier on, lots of the streamers especially got hit with, you had a really good season 1, and they're like, great, you're renewed, and they're like, what?
Yep.
And they have to figure out what to do with it, and that's why some of those later seasons are not that good. And so what they did was that you pitched them multiples, and you've already got the cast, you got options on them. Pulling the trigger, they did almost canceling it after 1 season was almost unheard of, and now it's again blood in the streets.
Yeah, it's yeah. I'm. It's almost like when a series comes out and you're really excited for it and you're watching it, you're like, this is absolutely amazing, and then you never know if it's going to get renewed until like months later, and then there's always these rumors, right? And then it's especially with this, right? Like right when the season ended and like I just finished it, it was like might not get renewed for season 2. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, I thought this should have been already established. I thought this should already been.
Yeah.
And so it just becomes insane now as to where like you get, you know, a series like
Paper Girls.
Remember.
Paper Girls got canceled too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you get a thing like Stranger Things, for example, right?
Yeah.
When at least I think when we knew when the first season came out, we already knew that there was going to be a second, and a third. I'm not sure though. But there was never any of this like what's going to happen to it, right? And I feel like you're right, Bill. Like there's like, yeah, it's insane. Just streaming services are insane right now. When something good comes out, you're like, don't get attached to it, but I'm attached to this show. I do want to address sort of the latter part of the episode where, and Q sort of made a good point where Dream Morpheus confronts his brother, Desire, right? So Q says to me, in my mind, the episode really took me to a place that Dream did realize that Desire fucked him over to try to take over the dream world, and he walked in. And Dream told Desire, if you get in my way again, I will fucking end you. I love that line, but the line Desire said, "Oh, I just made you jump, didn't I?" Right. So basically, we know that there's these sort of I can't think of the word now, not battles, but like there's tension between the siblings, right?
Yeah.
Some siblings like Death and Dream are know one another, they love one another, they they respect one another, and I would say they're the closest out of the entire of all the siblings, right? But then you have the twins, which are Desire and Despair, who are now plotting against um Dream, right? And so there's these things going on in this family where they think Dream thinks that he's this like end all be all mighty of them all. And I don't know. Let's talk about the future. What do we feel like before we get into 11? Because 11, like you said, is its own standalone, and I want to talk about 11 for 4 hours because that it was just the most beautiful episode. But where do we think this season's going to go? Do we think we're going to see more of um, sort of like this sibling? There it is, sibling rivalry. Like,
Uh-huh.
are we going to see more of that? Do you feel like we're going to see more of Hell? Obviously. Do you feel like
Well,
we're going to see more? What's going to come up in that? Let's start with you, Bill. Where do you think the if and when it gets renewed, where do you think the season will go next?
Well, yes, then again, I don't know where the underlying source material goes from. My underlying notion is very likely the siblings will be again the general wrapper, with it being like the main conflict will end up ending season 2, and the front half of, if we're talking 10 episodes, I think episodes 1 kind of really sets it up. We meet more of the siblings and kind of get more what they're headed at, what's going on. Then we're going to loop in Hell. We get about 5 episodes of Hell, and that that conflict being the thing.
Mm.
And then it will pivot like it did this season into the B story for the back half, and that will be Desire and whatever those machinations are, and that's how it will end up. Probably taking Desire will probably not get killed, but will get their butt kicked, and that will send them off into the sidelines. So if something else picks up later, and then Desire can pop back up in season 3 and 4, whatever. Anyway, that's
Nice. Yeah, absolutely. Jefferson, I'm pretty sure you probably have more of an insight than me and Bill do, because again, I'm in the same boat as Bill, where I'm just going in this like with I watched the whole series on TV or on Netflix, and I sort of looked up facts here and there. But where do you see this going, especially with it being on Netflix?
Without saying too much, what is being set up right now, especially with Desire and Lucifer, is the next season 2 has to be about the season of Mist, which is a longer. If Doll's House was just a single volume, Seasons of Mist is like 7 issues, a whole trade paperback's worth, and that is where, in a way, the Desire storyline comes to a head. Like I do appreciate how Desire has been I guess like post-credit scene in these episodes. Like he's not the main antagonist. He's not of the first season, but like he's definitely like pulling a lot of strings, and like these extra scenes where he's just being shown just being mischievous and conniving is it does do a lot to tie in how much of an asshole Desire is about to be in whatever's coming up next. And like it was an approach that like Cowboy Bebop did with a character named Vicious, where they showed too much of Vicious. Here with Desire, they're like, all right, here are the 5 episodes we'll throw in Desire. That's it. It was like 3 or 4, right? Exaggerating over 5. It was like 3 or 4 scenes, and it was just enough to make you go, who the fuck is this? I can't wait to see what they do next. Yeah.
Right.
Lucifer also does happen in Season of the Mist, I want to say. Yeah, it does. Yeah, even that storyline is, whatever. Both the things that they set up are coming up next. As if I'm assuming if Seasons of Mist is next, which it should be, because chronologically that is where we're headed.
Yeah, I do. I with both of you and Jefferson specifically with you, I do see that the series going that way, right? And it sort of left me sort of wanting to know more because the only siblings that we really get exposed to are Dream and Death. You see Death use specific abilities, right, that she has and that she can enable humans to do, right? With Desire, you don't get to see that. With Despair, you don't get to see that. And especially with the other siblings we haven't seen yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
You
I
don't
don't think
get
they've
to
been
see
casted
their
yet.
full, yeah, you don't get to see their full potential and like what they're capable of, right? Which can scare you or it can make you hopeful, right? That there is some sort of way that Dream might be able to overcome, this coming storm, right? That's going to
That's an
happen. And
exciting
so,
part, though, isn't it? Like we know what the concept of dreams are and desires are, and that just alone, like I guess, like opens your mind to like what could they possibly be about? Like if desire is our version of the Grim Reaper, and dreams is of course like the master of dreams, but also can what is it? There's a nice line he said about in the last episode. Dreams change the world. Dreams change the world is basically what he was saying.
yeah,
Like he can technically influence people with the way that he did with the killers at the end, where
yeah,
he just shut down every serial killer at that convention. Was like, all right, confess everything, guys. You are fucked in the head. There's no going. There's no going. I was when they adapted that in the show. I was floored. I was like, wow, they all these killers just like coming out of the hotel and just there wasn't it was just enough uh it was just enough just seeing people walking going to their cars and you get one gunshot and I'm like, all right, this is beautiful. I'm beautiful in a horrific way.
yeah,
uh and that's like that is what I guess like dream if we had to do like a whole like death battle thing, that is one of dreams like biggest powers, I guess. With with everyone else coming in, it will no actually just what Seasons of Mist is just gonna be Desire and I want to say another one. Desire and what's coming up next? I can't remember. Anyways, but yeah. With Destruction, you can already kind of infer what that entails. Delirium is interesting. Delirium it changes it later, but we'll get there. We'll cross that bridge hopefully when we get there.
sure. Yeah. So let's dive into episode 11. This was sort of split very fairly, I think. We have the beginning, and this episode is called The Dream of a Thousand Cats and Calliope. And just from yeah. So in the first, I would say first quarter of the episode, it's animated, and a lot of these cats are their voices are done by wonderful and amazing actors that we've seen in multiple movies
There's a fun
and
fact there
multiple
I'll
series.
share later.
Yeah, and then and in the first half, it's basically this little kitten who gets taken to a meeting of the cats and is there's basically all these cats are there to see this one individual female cat who has a story about how basically cats were used to rule the world, right? They were the ones that were in charge of everything and they used to rule humans. One day humans rebelled and basically started to uh, what you I guess metaphorically and would be domesticate the cats and all of that. But during this time, you also see a very, very sad part of the episode. And I think it was Bill, you might have warned me, or somebody else warned me, and you're like, okay,
That
just
was
be
me.
careful. There's this. And I was like, yeah. And then I saw it and I was like, oh, that was a lot worse than I thought it was going to be. And I was like, this poor thing. And basically we see her owners destroy a litter because they didn't want to have cats, and they basically destroy it by throwing. The guy basically gets a sack, puts them all in a sack, and throws them in the river, and basically drowns her kittens because they didn't. So she then dreams of a world where cats will eventually rule humans again. Anyway, let's start with this really quickly, and then we'll dive into Calliope, because that was literally my favorite part of this entire episode. Jefferson, you said you had a fun fact. What did you think about this part of the episode?
There was a moment where I was like watching this episode and I was just like listening to what was happening, and it was just I was like, why do some of these voices sound familiar? And I looked it up, and some of these voices are from the audiobook. I was like, wait.
Oh,
wait.
wow.
Yeah. They brought in James McAvoy and and who else? Oh, there was one other character. There was one other actor. Michael Sheen.
So there's a lot. Yes.
There's a star-studded cast. Yeah. In the audiobook, but they brought in just James McAvoy and Michael Sheen to voice a couple characters in the episode, the cat episode. It was really cool. It was like a nice little nod to people who like consume all this like Sandman media. I was wondering like how there's no way you're going to cast James McAvoy, and there are other people in that audiobook that are just like big ass names, and you're just like, there's no way you're going to cast these guys and like not use them for something else too in the same property. Sure. And I'm like at least glad McAvoy came in, because McAvoy plays Dream in the audiobook.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Bill, I was just going to say, did you have any thoughts about like this first quarter of the episode?
I kind of wanted more. Like I wanted more animated series, like
more cats,
more cats, sure. But I also wanted like more. I guess like I hope that they keep going with these surprise episodes. They're like, oh, they're animated episodes that are one and done, because there's a bunch more that they could potentially do, especially if you factor in the Sandman universe. There's a lot more stuff that they could like pull from.
I actually wish that they would do a, you know how you have American Horror Story, and now you've got American Horror Stories. And
sure,
I would love
right?
there to be strictly a Sandman anthology series. That it could be animated, it could be live action, it could be whatever the hell they wanted to do, and cover those little one-offs that are really beautiful. And you can bring in characters, and also lets production field trial characters and see, hey, does audience react to this or that and whatnot? And if so, then they can lift those characters out and put them back in the main line. But you have your main Sandman series, so you can get your long run burn there, but you also have these beautiful little episodes, and they don't even have to be hours. They could pull a Disney Plus bullshit and have these 24, 32 minute guys, and just kind of like tell your story, tell one story. Yeah. And I would really love that they could do an animated episode, and no apologies for it, no excuses, no nothing else, not having to couch it to anybody going, careful, we're going to have an anime. It's just like, want more Sandman? Here you go. And it was like, yes. And I love I think number one, my trigger is usually dogs getting hurt. Cats, I care a little less on, but that was like, what the hell? I was literally that was so fucked up. But then it's the second time really that we see. I think it's only when they're in hell during the main first 10 episodes that we really see Dream as someone else. I don't remember seeing him as someone else, to someone else. But
there was for a second.
This is the second time that Dream appears the way that the viewer expects Dream to appear. And so this time we got as the smoky Black Panther-esque sort of critter. And I loved that. I love that aspect to it. Though, to be fair, that means when we get to this the back half of the episode, Dream probably would have looked different to Calliope, but we'll skip that. But I like that element of his mythos, and they don't do it all the time. It's just sometimes here. Now we're gonna see how Dream was represented to this person, which also is interesting to me. Is I would have loved to have seen a POV of how Lucifer sees Dream. What would Lucifer see as a dream? Is it God? Is it another angel? What is a dream to Lucifer? Anyway,
I don't think it's ever been answered, even in the comic. I don't think
Dude, we should drop a note to Gaiman. I should put a
I wonder what that does look
We
like.
should, and then get credit for it. But you bring up a good point that like every person that sort of has an interaction, even if they are sort of mythical or they are sort of this like ethereal being, they see Dream as something different. But you're right. The only two times that we see him as something different is when he is talking to the person that he had a relationship with in hell.
Yep.
And then as this sort of Black Panther big cat in in this series. Let's go. Let's dive right into Calliope, because this literally was probably my favorite offshoot of the entire series that I've seen. So in Calliope, Calliope, if you all don't know Greek mythology, which I do also want to address, I love Gaiman and his ability to bring myth and fable to life and to like personify it in a way where it's not just beautiful, but it's like shockingly accurate. Do you know what I mean? Like, so Calliope, if you don't know, is one of the seven muses. Yeah, is one of the seven muses in Greek mythology, who the legend, throughout Greece, and the legend throughout any sort of artiste or anything, is that if you capture one of the muses, they will propel your art or propel your creativity in all that you do, whether it is writing, dancing, painting, anything that you do. If you capture one of the muses, you will be guaranteed a way to succeed. And we see that Arthur Darvill, who played Rory in Doctor Who, was like one of my favorite companions. He plays this struggling writer who has a book. He's got writer's block. He cannot do a second edition. He cannot do a continuation of that. He then goes to another writer who is very successful, who has written several successful novels, and goes to him, and basically this old dude who's like super old, is not going to write anymore, says, well, my secret is that I've captured one of the muses, and with her being captured, I have had much success in my writing. And that muse is Calliope. And basically, he gives Calliope to I'm going to just call him Rory. I forgot his name in there, but basically gives it to Arthur. And then Arthur all of a sudden has success with his novel, with his second novel, can write it, can do all of it, but keeps Calliope in basically imprisoned in his house. Calliope, we then find out, has had previous relations and actually has a kid with Dream, with Morpheus, and reaches out to Morpheus for help, even though it's been eons since they have spoken to one another. And he comes and he's like, she's like, I'm sorry to call upon you. He's like, why would you be sorry? Like, you're my girl, basically. And she's like, yeah, I need a way out. And he's like, he's not letting you out. He's like, you know what? He's like, and like you said, Jefferson, this is one of the only times that we actually see Dream like do something that is like, oh shit, like you have more power than I think you do, right? And basically ends with Dream. Dream basically scares the shit out of him, and basically he cannot. He floods his head with more and more ideas, and then all of a sudden he starts to become crazy, and he cannot control it, and it comes to a point where he becomes insane, and basically he forces this man to release Calliope, and he does, and then they have Calliope and Dream sort of have a talk with one another, where you sort of see how Dream's relation to Calliope was more than just like, I want to say transactional. Like, he truly loved her and she truly loved him. Clearly it didn't work out. They had a kid. I kind of want to see like an off-run shoot of this kid. Like, is this kid a muse? Is this kid a fucking like, what is this individual, right? Like, who is this kid? I'd love to see like another story of that. But this was probably one of like my favorite aspects of this entire series. And I'm so glad that Bill and other people were like, yeah, you need to watch it. And I did. And it was just so beautiful. Let's do just a quick, what did we feel about Calliope, or not quick, Bill, I'll start with you since you were the one that introduced me to it. What did you think about the Calliope part of this?
I really liked it. Number one, I love seeing the muses, getting back into being used again. I mean, it's been a while since Xanadu, especially with Olivia Newton-John just having passed away. Though she was Terpsichore, not Calliope, but hey, muses are muses. They got to get gigs where they are. And it's also an interesting spin because the mythology of muses is not to capture one. That would be like a profoundly bad thing, not to least to mention that, if you have muses, that means Apollo is real and he'll show up and kick your butt anyway. You usually just invoked muses and got them down. But it's like it was neat with how they were kind of bringing the pieces together. And again, it's that the recurrent thing both in fantasy and as well now as in Dream is that be careful what you wish for, right? You want ideas? Fine, you'll have ideas. So much will be leaking out your ears and you can't stop them sort of list of ideas. And so this is where it is. And also people who wish for something, they get the something or they get their wish granted, and then how it changes them is usually, some people end up good. What's her name back in the car that, we all thought it was a John, was gonna, kill her at the one point with her and her dog, but there's like, here's amulet of protection. Have a nice day. Outside of, that it will probably not corrupt and make her a bad person, but she's like, okay, the only person of the entire series that might not be turned by having a power. But most of these others is like, you start out with good intentions. Even Alex at the beginning of the series, he's a kid. He's a good kid. He wants to let him loose. As soon as he has the power then to make the call, whether or not to stay or to go, that's fine. That's on them. And so, they can make that choice about they get the power, and then all of a sudden, do I want to let him go? No, hey, Death, let's just keep you around for a little bit, shall we? And so that's what I ended up getting with. But I really enjoyed it, as kind of like again, remember early on, I think you made the comment that, hey, there was an episode that really didn't like add much to the storyline. Where we're going with it, it kind of felt separate of the main thrust. Here's another one, but you know what? All of the fans were kind of like, yes, please give me more. And that's kind of like the great way to find a hook. And again, it's something that Netflix did no advertising on, didn't have to do anything, but they knew by word of mouth, they dropped this puppy 2 weeks later and they get another big bump going on. And then it got more people talking about it, bringing in more people to go back and check out the series. So I think that's going to be an ongoing good thing.
Which would be really shitty if they canceled this series.
Yeah, but you know what? Let's think about what happens when they cancel series. It makes you even more fonder of the brown coats.
Oh my God! Don't bring that up. Oh my gosh.
Which, the great, it's the thing is, this would be far more of a loss for to not be brought back than Firefly's cancellation, right? It's it's a really good series. It brings a whole new type of mythology. It's not straight high fantasy. It's not a young adult show. God damn it! Fortunately, it's not a young adult show. There's too many of those anyway. The last thing we don't need is another. I mean, there's nothing wrong with Riverdale. Bless them, CW, power to you. But we got plenty of that shit. This is something for a different audience, and I appreciated that.
Absolutely. Jefferson, what did you think about the Calliope portion of episode 11?
It was another great, just standalone, can be its own mini movie thing. I think I learned I'm not familiar with Greek mythology. So a lot of this was just I was just going through it. I was just going through with what's the word I'm looking for? I was just going with it. I was like, oh, okay, Calliope is just the god of creativity. Cool. All right, fine. And it was just, I guess it was just the main thing I want to talk about actually is there was a line in the episode that Rory's character, not Arthur Darvill's character, he was at a party and there was that whole exchange about, where do you get your strong female characters from? And I was just,
Yes, yeah.
we're touching on that. Okay. We're touching on how not only is he a liar, but also using the word feminism for like personal gain. I was like, what? Like opportunistic feminism in guys is a prominent thing, and they talk about it. They straight up just like make that a thing in this episode. I was like, wow, they they talk about the Joss Whedon thing without using Joss Whedon.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, and I think it's important to point out Calliope was the muse of eloquency and epic poetry. So it makes sense that, these two individuals who write these books, right, that express these characters, it just made sense that Calliope was the individual that did this. Bill, I think you're right. I think you need to do like a Sandman, like an offshoot of the Sandman where it's, like the dreams of nightmares or something, right? Where they do these little mini episodes, right? And they go into depth, or they make it part of the series somehow, right? Where it's not necessarily a part of the sort of comic, novel canon. But we've seen that, right? We've seen how they can take an entire episode that doesn't need to be there, but it's necessary and it's well done. It's like watching a mini movie, right? I feel like there needs to be more. I definitely wanted to know more after this episode, and hopefully we get that. But I feel like this episode was really well. And if people had missed it, please go and watch it because it was amazing. Q says, dude, episode 11, it's really fire. It's really well done. The story is really well written and as a whole, it's really trippy and different from the series, which is absolutely true. I do also want to point out, Greek mythology and mythology just in general. The Fates were also a part of the Sandman saga and how he called upon them. And the Fates were also in this episode where she basically, called upon them as a muse, and they said, sorry, can't do shit for you, which is why she basically called upon Morpheus to help her in the end to escape all of that. So are there any last minute thoughts on the series? Any recommendations for people that haven't seen it going in, something that they should be aware of, or just sort of not taking things too seriously? Is there anything like that? Jefferson, let's start with you. Anything to a newcomer coming to the series?
I've been trying to get my there's like I have like a gaggle of friends who love horror and hate superheroes, and I'm just like I swear this is not a superhero. Yes, but no, it's like it's not. It is a superhero in a way, but no, it's not. This is full on dark fantasy. This is oh god, it's mythology at its most raw and like, and it's mythology at its most raw. Like it's just a writer just taking in all these concepts of what he loves, Shakespeare and Greek mythology, and with a dash of horror, and just putting it all together in like a big, like, I guess like ethereal melting pot is the best way I could put it. It's if when I say horror, it's not the scariest thing ever, but it's there. It's definitely dark. It's definitely a dark fantasy. When you say that you want like more from this universe, there's so much to pull from. There's so many spin-offs of Sandman that I have not even checked out yet. Like there's a thing called the Book of Magic. There's a thing called there's one about the House of Mystery, which is more about that house that Cain and Abel, Cain and Abel are from. And there's so much they could pull from. They ever want to do more from this universe. There's literally a whole Sandman universe of stories. I don't want to say cinematic because we're not quite there. Like a whole Sandman comic universe that's separate from the DC universe. Even though this technically is DC, it's like yes and no.
Sure. Yeah. And Bill, any last minute suggestions to any newcomers now that you've seen the entire series?
For me, I I really appreciate that you can really get a full thing out of this without having to use the source material. And as such, I would almost kind of encourage people go into it cold. If you haven't read it already, if you have, great, keep on going. Otherwise, go into it cold, enjoy it through the season, and then go back and start picking up the big compendium volumes and enjoying going through the stuff. And I'm sure you can go just sign up somewhere and subscribe to one spot or another and just read all the comics online. So any of that sort of stuff is just it's to what he said. You can really, it's such a big, rich mythos and so many side stories. I mean, Dream is, again, the main Sandman. It's the name of the book. So that's the main through line. But you got all these other people doing stuff and entities and creatures and things. And it's not, I mean, it's little Timmy's first horror novel. Yeah, sure. It's not the most horrific, but there's definitely some stuff of nightmare in there. Even him just sitting there at the very end of episode 10, working on some new nightmares on the beach, the thing with the no face with just all teeth. I'm like, dude, he's still got it. He's not making all puppies and flowers. Though if he was making a nightmare with puppies and flowers, I really want to see what sort of hook he would put on that thing.
Dude, if you there's do you know about the AI art? You know about AI art? Like people just generating it. You just type that up and see what happens.
Yeah. No, it's
I have one on my phone and it's absolutely terrifying. I will sit up late at night and just come up with ones and save them. I love it.
What app do you use?
It's called Dream. It's just called Dream.
Oh, okay.
And you type
irony
in Dream
there.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I don't know if you can see it. Oh, okay. I don't know if you can see it, but
Yeah.
it's like, whatever. It says Dream and it's got like a W in it. But you type it in and it's got
we're talking Sandman, right? And you're playing on an app named Dream. Is that what millennials?
Maybe
see
I'm the
Dream as, an
Sandman.
app?
Who knows?
Is it Wombo Dream? I'm looking at Wombo Dream. Is that the one?
I think so, and it's like rainbow. It like looks sort of like paint splatter. Yeah,
I saw this on Reddit for a second.
It's insane. I'll show you both some shit I made like after we're done. It's absolutely insane. I love it. But anyway, that's all the time we have to talk about the Sandman, the entire season. But episodes 10 and 11, I enjoyed this entire series 100%. There really wasn't, all things being said, there really wasn't anything that I was like truly disappointed in. Like this wasn't a Game of Thrones season 7 for me. Like this was definitely, everything was beautiful. It was amazing. It only made me want to read the novels even more. So I got to definitely invest in those and read in those and the comics and all that stuff, because it's really beautiful and amazing. I would like to thank my guests, Bill and Jefferson. Y'all were here in the beginning. Y'all were here at the end. Y'all were here also. Bill, you were here throughout the whole time. Thank you all for doing this with me. This was amazing. I cannot wait to see you both on any other shows that we do here. So please, you are more than welcome to be a guest on my show, or I can be a guest on yours if you ever do it. But thank you all for tuning in.
We'll be back for season 2, episode 1. We'll be back.
Yes, please. Hopefully, I'll have like an outfit by then, like a Sandman outfit or something.
Oh gosh, please!
Just, like I'm dressed up like it.
And I just broke up my Rolodex, and I sent an email off to Gaiman. So if he replies back, we'll send it along to report back.
That would be awesome. But thank you all for tuning in. Be sure to join our Discord to keep the conversation going. You can listen to the show on Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitch. All of our platforms are at Nom Talk Network. So tune into our next show, which is going to be a Nom Watch review. We're going to be doing the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's like a double feature. We'll be doing the 1974 one and the 2003 one. So catch up on those if you haven't seen them already. And we'll be doing that later on. I won't be, but it'll be hosted and done with some other guests. But until then, it is wonderful to see you all. Again, my name is Jordyn Orozco, and I'm your host for the evening. Oh, thank you, Steph. Thank you, producer Steph. Where can we find you, Bill, on the socials?
Bill RW, the number 3, all channels. All frequencies are open.
Yes, and Jefferson, where can we find you?
Jeffersaurus on everything. That's with a W instead of a U.
Yes, awesome. You can find me, City of Stars 13, on Instagram. I am there. Thank you, producer Steph. We love you. Thank you for producing this show.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for letting us, do Sandman. You are awesome. You're amazing. We love you so very much for also reminding us in the chat to do certain things. So until then, again, I am your host, Jordyn Orozco, and I hope you have a nomorific evening. Bye, everyone.